Hey guys, what's up? So, welcome to the second part of the first lesson. Here we are going to cover the untouched learning objectives, starting from relative value of two currencies. So, relative value is the value of one thing that takes into account the value of another thing having similar attributes. And that is how foreign exchange is a relative value concept because it's the value of one currency versus the value of another currency. And it is not just mere comparison, it is knowing the worth of one currency by taking into consideration the worth of another currency. So, coming to the chronology of how the relative value was determined, gold standard was first of its kind, where countries decided to weigh their currency against the value of other countries' currencies using gold as a basis for valuation. Just like how under paper currency, where an individual would deposit certain quantity of gold in the bank and the bank would give a paper guaranteeing an equal worth, here the central bank issued paper money and kept an equal quantity of gold worth rupees the paper money issued by the bank. This rate was used to determine the value of each currency in relation to another currency. For example, if 1 unit of gold is worth 10,000 in INR and the value of same 1 unit of gold is worth 500 in USD, then the exchange rate between these two currencies would be 1 USD equal to 20 INR. So this is the relative value of two currencies with respect to one another. So the relative value here was determined by the cost of certain quantity of gold prevalent in each of the trading parties' country. From gold standard, we switched to floating exchange rate system. And what caused the switch? Changing political conditions like world wars, civil wars, and even trade deficit surplus situation caused countries to move from gold standard to floating exchange rate system as foreign trade grew in size. It is a system under which the market forces of demand and supply had a major role in determining the value of the currency. Here, the central bank's intervention to control the value of the domestic currency was a common tool. That was done in order to preserve the trade competitiveness of the country. So suppose the Central Bank of India, which is RBI, with the intention to control the value of INR, would either buy or sell the INR, which is the local currency, in open market operation in order to maintain the trade competitiveness of India and to maintain the value of the currency in the global market. Now, during 1944 to 1971, countries adopted a system called Britain's Woods system. This scheme was a hybrid between gold standard and floating exchange rate system. So here both the market forces and gold had a role to play. As a part of this system, all currencies were pegged to USD and USD in turn was pegged to gold. The US guaranteed to other central banks that they have the ease of converting their currency into USD at any point of time, and the value of USD would be pegged to the value of gold. With adoption of this system, USD became the dominant currency of the world. Finally, Bretton Woods system was done with and countries adopted a free floating or managed float method of valuing the currency. Developed countries moved to market determining exchange rate, where market forces had a huge role to play in determining the value of the currency, and developing countries adopted either a system of pegged currency or a system of managed rate. So in system of peg currency, the value of the currency is pegged to another currency, and the benefit of peg currency is that it creates an environment of stability for foreign investors, as they know that the value of their investment in the country at any point of time would be fixed to the value of the currency it is pegged to. Although in long run it is difficult to maintain the peg, and ultimately the central bank may change the value of peg or move to a free float exchange rate system where countries have control on the flow of capital from foreign investors, and central bank intervention is a common tool to contain sharp volatility and direction of currency movements. So this is how we landed up in determining the relative value of two currencies in the global market. Coming to major currencies. Now, what are majors? Majors are the most traded currency pairs in the world. These currencies follow free floating method of valuation, and as we already know, free floating method of valuation is where market forces had a huge role to play. The most active currency pairs are these six that you can see. Now you need not know what EUR stands for, what JPY stands for, because this exam is not going to test this. It's good if you know it already. And you can treat this as X and this as Y for the ease of doing your numericals. That would be sufficient to pass the exam. Now here are a list of 5 major currencies starting from USD. USD is the most widely traded currency in the world and it reflects its substantial international role as investment currencies because major investors all around the world uses USD as a currency to invest in capital markets, reserve currencies because many central banks uses this currency as a reserve currency, transaction currency because this currency is used as a medium of transaction in commodity markets, invoice currency because it is used as a transaction currencies in many contracts between two parties, intervention currency because it is used by many monetary authority as well in order to influence their own exchange rate in open market operations, and the major role that USD plays is of vehicle currency in foreign exchange transactions. Now we have a new term here, but instead of going through the definition, let's see an example in order to understand it better. So what comes to your mind when you first hear the term vehicle? Something used for transporting people or goods, a medium. Vehicle currency does the same job. It acts as a third currency in order to facilitate transaction between two currencies. Now before starting with the example, it is important for you to know that in order to facilitate transaction between two countries, it's important to conduct this whole process of research on the trading partner's country and consider their economic indicators and market benchmarks and other indicators to know how that country has been doing in terms of economic well-being. Okay, so it's not easy for any bank to do it. It is a very time consuming process. So let's start with the example. So this is couple, an Indian investor, and this is Alex, an investor from Philippines. They are willing to enter into a contract and so they want to know the exchange rate of this currency pair. So Alex goes to a bank in order to get informed about the currency rate, in order to get informed about the exchange rate. But the banks are reluctant to quote the same. Now, why do you think the banks are reluctant to quote the same? Because here we have assumed India and Philippines hardly ever trade directly. So no banks find it profitable to be a market maker in this currency pair. That is, no one directly buys or sells this currency pair. That's the reason why banks are reluctant to quote it. So what option do they have? Here comes the role of vehicle currency, which is USD here. So dollar being the most traded liquid currency in the market, banks are ready to exchange pesos for USD and then use that USD back to buy INR. Although this approach results in two transactions than one, it may be the most preferred way since the USD dollar INR market and the USD dollar Philippine peso market are more active, liquid, and requires less information for banks to process the transaction. So by using USD or some other currency as a vehicle currency, banks and other foreign exchange market participants can limit more of their working balances to that vehicle currency. Rather than holding and managing many currencies, they can concentrate their research and information sources on that vehicle currency only. So this saves their time and research that demands money. Now we'll check the definition of vehicle currency. So trading each of the two currencies against a common third currency as vehicle rather than to trade the two currencies directly against each other. As a result, using a vehicle currency will result in fewer, wider, and more liquid markets as well as decreased information needs and simplified operations. Now to determine the number of exchange rate when there is no vehicle currency. Please note this is to determine the number of exchange rate in the absence of vehicle currency and not the number of transactions taking place. So in a system of 10 currencies, if one currency is selected as the vehicle currency and used for all transactions, there would be a total of 9 currency pairs. Yes, if out of 10 currencies, we choose one currency to be vehicle currencies, we'll have 9 currency pairs or exchange rates. However, in the absence of vehicle currency, we would have 45 exchange rates. How did we come to this 45? We have a small formula for that. N multiplied by n minus 1 divided by 2. Your n is the number of transactions, which is 10 here. So as per the formula, we have 10 into 9 by 2, which is 45. Okay. So coming to the remaining major currencies, we have Euro, which is a strong international presence and has emerged as a premier currency, only second to the US dollar. So after USD, in terms of strong presence, it is EUR, which is Euro. Japanese yen, which is JPY, is the third most traded currency. after USD and Euro, and it is very liquid around the world. While pound JBP, it is heavily traded against Euro and USD, which is the second and the first most traded currency in the world. But in terms of presence against other currency, it doesn't really have much hold. Now, cable is a slang term for the exchange rate between US dollar and JBP. Okay, coming to the fifth currency, which is Swiss franc, CHF. It is the most stable currency in the world and is used as the reserve currency in many of the international transactions. Swiss bank closely resembles the pattern of euro, which means it has a strong international presence but it lacks liquidity. Now, what do we mean by liquidity in terms of currency? By that, I mean there are many sellers and buyers in the market for this currency, as it is known to be very liquid around the world. A currency is stable when the general level of prices, which is measured by Consumer Price Index (CPI), it does not fluctuate much with the market. That is when a currency is known to be stable. Overview of international currency market. Now, foreign exchange market is also known as currency trading market or just FX. It is a market in which participants from around the world buy and sell different currencies. Participants would include banks, corporations, central banks, investment management firms, retail forex brokers, and investors, obviously. It is the largest financial market in the world with an average daily trading volume of 5 trillion. In this market, there is no central location of exchange. Instead, it is traded through a network of international dealers and brokers that helps to facilitate global transaction. A business use this market when they are buying products from other country. So products are transferred and then the currencies are converted to pay for the product. So this market was created to facilitate the exchange of currency that is necessarily as the result of foreign exchange. Now, due to Earth's rotation, we know that day and night experienced by countries are not the same. So here in the graph, you can see the activity of countries like Tokyo, New York, and London. The open, high, low, close goes on. And the gap here is because of no business days. So irrespective of which countries active trading is taking place during a day, the exchange rate of major currencies are almost equal in all financial centers. So the access to this market for any market participant is always there. Now coming to the basics of currency market. Currency pair. Now in forex market, currency is always quoted in pair because as discussed before, foreign exchange is a relative value concept where the value of the currency. Now as we know in foreign exchange, currency is always quoted in a pair because the currency pair is the relative value of a currency unit against the unit of another currency in the foreign exchange market. And for major currency pairs, economic development in each of the underlying country would impact the value of each of the currency, although in varying degree. And for major currency pairs, economic development in each of the underlying country impacts the value of each of the currency. Now, yes, there is definitely a role of the economic factors in determining the currency's worth. So a currency pair is a price quote of the exchange rate for two currencies in the FX market. Now coming to the base currency and quotation currency. The first listed currency to the left of the slash is called the base currency and the second currency is called the quote currency, which is to the right of the slash. Now here the amount of base currency is always fixed at 1 unit. So this rate is the value of base currency in terms of quote currency. You can read this as 1 EUR equals to 1.4 USD. And this is the price of base currency in terms of quote currency. So the base currency is the currency that is priced. Okay, this is the value of EUR in terms of USD and its amount is fixed at 1 unit. And the other currency is quotation currency, which prices the base currency and its amount varies as the price of BC varies in the market. And what is quoted through the foreign exchange market anywhere in the world is the price of BC expressed in QC. Okay, for example, in this currency pair, the currency first quoted is BC. So USD is the base currency and INR is the quote currency. And what is quoted in the market is the price of USD in terms of INR. Okay. In GBP USD, GBP is my base currency and USD is my quotation currency. And this would be read as 1 GBP equals to 1.44 USD. Means that 1 unit of GBP is valued at 1.44 USD. Coming to the next slide, we have interbank market and merchant market and the two-way quote. Now, the foreign exchange market has been divided into two distinct segments. The one is interbank market and the other is merchant market. Interbank market is the market between banks where dealers quote prices at the same time for both buying and selling the currency. So they are known as market makers. Why? Because they are quoting the rate of both buying and selling the currency. Now suppose there is a wholesaler who mentions both the selling price and the cost price, then he would be called as market maker because he is mentioning both the prices here. And if it's a retailer who just quotes the selling price, then we would be called as a price taker and he would be called as price giver. So under merchant market, merchants are price takers and banks are price givers. Although few large merchants and corporates may ask banks to quote two-way prices, as such merchants have both side interests. So the difference between two is merchant bank market is the market between banks only, where here we have merchants and banks. They mention the two-way quote, while this mentions one-way quote. However, in some cases, where merchants and corporates may show their interest to know both, the banks may mention two-way quotes. Otherwise, it's mostly one-way quote here. So a bid price is nothing but the price at which the banks are willing to buy the currencies, and the ask price is the price at which the banks are willing to sell the currencies. Now this would be discussed in detail in our next slide. First, let's learn how are they quoted in the abbreviated form. So the actual bid and offer price for USD INR is 68.02/68.03. The abbreviated form would be quoted as 68.02/03 only. This would be enough for any market participant to know which is the offer price and which is the bid price. Now the bid price is always less than the offer price, which is very obvious, the buying price to be less than the selling price. And the difference between bid and offer price is called spread. The lower the spread, the higher the liquidity of the currency pair. And the difference between bid price and offer price is always marginal, changes in the last two decimal places mostly, and this is how it is quoted in the abbreviated form. So bid and offer price for EUR USD is 1.0925/1.0950. How do you expect this to be quoted in abbreviated form? 1.0925/50. See, changes in the last two decimal places only. Same for the GBP USD, which is 1.400/1.4425, would be quoted as 1.4400/25. Okay, for USD JPY, 120.60/120.61, which is 120.60/61. So in the interbank market, they quote both offer and bid price, and that is why they are called as market makers. So this is the bid and offer price of which currency? USD INR. But what's the difference? Here, this price is expressed in the terms of INR, which is the quotation currency here, and here this is expressed in terms of USD, which is the quotation currency here. So if I ask you which is the base currency and quotation currency in this exchange rate, then USD is the base currency and INR is the quotation currency. While here, INR is the base currency and USD is the quotation currency. Now the price quoted first to the left of the slash is called bid price, which is the buy price, and the price quoted second to the right of slash is called ask price or sell price. Here this would be the bid and buy price, and this would be the ask and sell price. Now this bid and ask price is for the bank. The banks are willing to purchase currency at this rate and they are willing to sell currencies at this rate. But for traders, this would be the ask price. For the banks to buy currency, the trader has to sell it, right? This is how the banks would buy. So this would be the ask or the sell rate for traders, while this would be the bid or the buy price for traders. For the banks to sell, someone has to buy. The traders would buy at this rate. The same would be applicable in this case. For the banks to buy currency, the trader has to sell at this rate. And so this would be the rate of bid price as the banks are willing to sell at this rate. So here if I say 1 USD equal to 74.09 INR, it would mean that it takes 74.09 INR to buy 1 USD in the market. And if I say 1 USD equals to 74.20 INR, then it would mean that it takes 74.20 INR to sell 1 USD in the market. Okay, so if 1 INR equals to 0.013 USD, then it means it would take 0.013 USD to buy 1 INR, which is the base currency here. And so here if 1 INR equals to 0.013 USD, then it means that it would take 0.013 USD to buy 1 INR. And if I say 1 INR equals to 0.019 USD, then it would mean it takes 0.01 USD to sell 1 INR in the market. Now there's an inverse relationship between two. If you want to interchange the base currency with quote currency, as in this case, then we just have to put this in the denominator of the fraction. Just like this, bring this in the denominator and make it a fraction. So here, this value was derived when I divided 1 by 74.09. You can check it for yourself. So 1 by 74.09 is 0.013 and 1 by 74.20 is 0.019. Next we have appreciation and depreciation of the currency. Now coming to appreciation and depreciation, there is an inverse relationship between any currency pair when it comes to this. So if one currency appreciates, the other currency has to depreciate and vice versa. And how does that occur? So whenever the base currency buys more of quotation currency, the base currency gets strengthened, which means it gets appreciated. And in turn, the quotation currency gets weakened, gets depreciated. Now here in USD JPY, if this is equivalent to 100, it means that 1 USD dollar, which is the base currency here, buys 100 units of Japanese yen, which is the quotation currency here. Now, when it gets appreciated, then it would be able to buy more of Japanese yen, right? So now let's see. If the USD appreciates, the number of unit has turned to be 110. So now 1 USD buys 110 units of Japanese yen. And now if we consider a situation where USD gets depreciated, then what do you expect? The rate to fall below 100? Yes. So if the USD depreciates, the unit now becomes 90. It has gone below 100. So now 1 USD dollar would only buy 90 units of Japanese yen. Now here if USD gets appreciated, JPY gets depreciated. Yes, because there's an inverse relationship between two when it comes to appreciation and depreciation. And here, since USD has got depreciated, JPY will get appreciated. Now coming to market timing. In India, OTC market, which stands for over-the-counter market, is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. where from 9 a.m. to 4:30 it is for merchants to trade, and the last half hour is meant for the interbank dealings. As we have already read in Interbank Market, only banks can participate and there is a two-way quote mentioned. As you know, in Interbank Market, the dealing happens between banks only. So remember the OTC market timing is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now here we would calculate the percentage appreciation and the percentage depreciation in a currency. Okay, so here in this currency pair we see an increase in the price, right, from 0.8350 to 0.460. What does this signify? This signifies that the base currency has strengthened and now it can buy more of quotation currency. So when the base currency strengthens, what do we say? Which currency has appreciated? The one that has strengthened, USD. And since we know that there is an inverse relationship between the two, if one currency appreciates, the other currency depreciates. So we know EUR is depreciated here. Now we'll calculate the percentage of appreciation in USD. How would we calculate that? Here we have a formula. Any change in BC is calculated by difference divided by the price that was quoted earlier. While to calculate the change in QC, we do it by dividing the difference with the change price of the new price. If you don't want to mug up the formula, there's a trick for you. So always remember that the appreciation is more than depreciation in any case. And second, the base effect. Now what is base effect? With the increase in the denominator, the value of the final number decreases, and with the decrease in the denominator, the value of the final number increases. So here we want appreciation to be calculated. For that we want a higher number, which means we want the denominator to be lower of these two. The numerator will always be the same, the difference of the two. The only difference in these two formulas is the denominator. And now we know to calculate depreciation, we need the lower of these two numbers as the denominator. See, in the denominator we used the lower of the two price, which is 0.8350. While to calculate depreciation, we took the greater number, which is 0.460, because we know that the final value of appreciation is always more than depreciation. And due to the base effect, the lower the denominator, the higher the final value. This also fits in with the formula, as you can see. Now in example 2, we see a drop in the price of the currency pair, right? So what has happened here? Here the base currency has weakened, which means it can buy less of the quote currency. So which currency has depreciated here? It's the base currency, which is USD. And which currency has appreciated here? The quote currency, INR. Now how would we calculate the percentage of depreciation of USD, which is the base currency? You can use this formula, or you can use the logic of base effect, by which the denominator would be the greater of these two numbers, which is 74.10, so that it satisfies the condition of depreciation always being lower than appreciation. You can see how the denominator of depreciation is the greater of these two numbers, and the denominator of appreciation is the lower of these two numbers. Now coming to the next slide, we have price benchmark, price discovery, and RBI reference rate under basis of currency market topic. Okay, so starting with price benchmark. So there are two price benchmarks, IBR, which is interbank rate, and card rate. IBR is generally for large value merchant transaction in the interbank market, while card rate is for small value transaction. Your IBI could differ from bank to bank, and the difference could be in the range of 0.25 or 0.02. Here, on most days, card rate is same for the whole day. However, on the days of high volatility, banks revise the card rate multiple times during the day. Okay, so this is basically for large value transactions, and this card rate is for small value transaction. That is all you need to know. Under price discovery, we have the fact that once the market opens, the price in the markets are largely determined by what has happened in the foreign markets when they were active in trading. That is why this market is not considered quite liquid in the first few minutes after it opens. However, the market eventually finds an equilibrium price at which purchase and sale orders are cleared. Even price determination is the method of determining an equilibrium price of supply and demand. Coming to the RBI reference rate. So RBI reference rate is the rate published daily by RBI for spot rate for various currency pairs. The procedure for arriving at the spot rate for various currency pair is as follows. Now what does spot rate mean? Spot rate is the rate at which immediate settlement between two trading parties can take place. It's like the prevailing exchange rate in the market right now. So how does the bank arrives at spot rates for various currencies? These are the method. We have taken example of few currency pair to make it easy for you to understand. This rate is determined by the selected list of contributing banks during a 5 minutes window between 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. every week, excluding Saturdays. Now the other three rates, which is any random currency with INR, would be computed by crossing the USD INR rate that we computed here with the ruling Euro USD, Pound USD, USD Yen rates. So you see how we are not compounding rates for Euro INR and instead using the vehicle currency to compute the rates. Okay, so after this method, we come to the third method, which is the method under which RBI releases daily RBI reference rate for US dollar every weekday around 1:30 p.m. So this is how they arrive at a spot rate for various currency. Firstly, by computing USD INR and then computing the rest of the currency by crossing the USD and coming to a spot rate for various currency pairs, and then releasing the same every weekday around 1:30 p.m. So with this, we finished our basis of currency markets topic. In the next part, we'll start with settlement date or value date, and the further numericals involved in determining the exchange rate. So thank you guys for being with me. I hope you understood the topic discussed so far. With this, I end the second part of the first lesson. There will be 3 parts of the first lesson. So don't forget to press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon for latest update. Thank you. Keep learning, keep growing.